I don't think I've ever seen an FAA administrator act more quickly to an NTSB safety recommendation than last Tuesday when Sean Duffy made permanently the temporary NOTAM of shutting down the Route 4 DC helicopter route between Haynes Point and Wilson Bridge. Let's check it out.
I want to talk about Route 4. That is the route that helicopters take on the Potomac River right off of runway 33. That's where this crash took place. And so I thought Chair Hamady, if I can bring up the graphic here, made an incredibly important point in her press conference. And in her graphic, you can see 0 at the bottom would be runway 33. If you go to the left to 4,000, that is the eastern edge of the river by the embankment. If you go up 200 feet, you are only 75 feet away from a landing aircraft. So at best, we're in a situation where we're threading a needle allowing helicopters to fly down the same airspace as landing aircraft. And why this information wasn't studied and known before January 29th is an important question. But based on that information and this crash, we are going to continue with our restrictions on Route 4 here. So about 36 hours after the crash, we restricted this airspace, and we're going to continue with those restrictions. That would be from Haynes Point to the Wilson Bridge.
Today we're going to look into this question.
We're threading a needle allowing helicopters to fly down the same airspace as landing aircraft. And why this information wasn't studied and known before January 29th is an important question.
And that's what we're going to look into today. With the help of some industry insiders and doing a little bit of research, we're going to take a look at how the sausage is made and where this information, where all these reports came from, went to, and where did the buck stop. My name's Juan Brown. You're watching the BLANCOLIRIO channel, and this is the next installment in the Washington DCA mid-air crash. On the last presentation, we discussed where was the data? How come if there were so many near-miss reports about the helicopters versus the airliners there at Washington, D.C., why was this information not brought to the attention of the FAA, and more importantly, not acted upon by the FAA before there was this crash? Because what this crash represents is a massive failure of a major safety monitoring system. The entire system failed. Non-punitive aviation safety reporting systems have been around for years. As an airline pilot, we work with a system called ASAP program, Aviation Safety Action Program. As a private pilot, you can work with the NASA program to report safety lapses that you see out there in the field. Air traffic control has an ATSAP program, similar to ASAP program, but for air traffic controllers. Federal contract towers have the SAFER FCT program. And of course, another interesting part of airline flying is the FOQA program, where the aircraft these days have so much data on board the aircraft that they can flag gatekeepers, FOQA gatekeepers, the moment that there's any data that's outside of normal limitations, whether caused by the aircraft or caused by the human pilots. If, as an airline pilot, if you exceed a limit, you're going to get a call from a FOQA gatekeeper pretty quick to answer to what happened out there. And all this information is collected and disseminated. But what's important about these programs is they are done so voluntarily, and the data is held in confidentiality. Unless there is a case of PINK or procedural intentional non-compliance with the regulations, there will not be enforcement action against you if you file one of these reports. It's like a get-out-of-jail-free card, and that's key to making the system work. And this is also key to those of us out here on social media doing these sort of reports, that we keep the data generic. We don't reveal the names of the crews of the people that are involved in these accidents, or you're going to completely destroy the very essence of the aviation safety reporting system. Now, my question at the last presentation is, okay, where does all this data go? I know at the airlines, they collect all this data. We get feedback from it as pilots. We even get, in the distant future, training programs designed around certain crashes or trends or mishaps out there in the aviation industry. And this training comes out as AQP training, or Advanced Qualification Program training, scenario-based training based on real-world data. Instead of just meeting the FAA minimum standards, you get real-world training experience through the data. So what happens to that data once it leaves the airlines? And from my research, I've found that this data is sent in bulk form from the airlines or to the Aviation Safety Reporting System, ASRS system, which is run by NASA. And again, the information is sent in bulk form and de-identified as to who specifically was involved to seek out the trends and find the problem areas that are out there in the system today. Now here it is, the ASRS database online. Here's where all these reports reside, and any of us in the public can check them out. Remember those 50 reports of near misses that Jennifer Hamady was reporting about over a certain time period? They're all right here. Check it out. We start here with Start Search, and to make this real simple, we'll go Identifier, DCA, Add, Save, and then we'll add text contains words helicopter. If you can type. Get it in both the narrative and the synopsis. Save. Now run search. Come on. Your search has returned 48 ACNs. And check out some of these reports. Now, if I go to the bottom of these 48 reports, it looks like the last one was 1988, 1988-03. So we're going all the way back to 1988, and this is just regarding helicopters versus airliners at DCA. The latest one here, 2024-04, again, all de-identified. We were flying the river visual approach to runway 19 at DCA, and we got a TCAS alert, helicopter 300 feet below us. RNAV runway 19 approach. We got a TCAS traffic alert, yellow traffic icon showing 500 feet below. Then they got a resolution advisory to climb, and it was a helicopter lifting off the hospital. ATC delayed, here's another one. ATC delayed switch from approach to tower, which led to a traffic advisory, resulting in an altitude deviation, causing a jip whiz caution with the terrain. Tower issued a low altitude alert. Helicopter traffic was heading up the Potomac River while we were on the river visual approach. Did not alert us to the oncoming traffic. By the time Tower responded, we had a resolution advisory to descend, which led to a jip whiz of a low altitude alert from the tower. That's you don't want traffic advisories or resolution advisories driving you into the water. We confirmed traffic in sight and maneuvered back on course to correct the deviation. As I said before, some of these reports can come right straight from the controllers, and here's one from a controller. He was working as the local and helicopter positions. Remember, those two positions can be split up into two different persons, or they can be merged into one person operating both positions, as was the case at the time of the accident. After a near miss, he says that he recommends recurrent helicopter training for the facility to prevent this incident from occurring in the future with other controllers. Here's one back in 2015 that sounds just exactly like the accident that happened recently. They were circling to land they were taking the visual to runway 1, circled to land, runway 33. They followed the bulletin, and about 400 feet off the ground from the point where the pilot monitoring had to take the controls to make a correction in order to prevent from becoming a mid-air collision because of a helicopter. After there was action taken to make the correction of the close call, we were informed by the DC tower of close traffic, although at that point it would have been too late. They didn't get the word from the tower that the helicopter was right there as they were circling to land on runway 33. I've flown with people who, for the purposes of having a better chance of making a stabilized approach, would have had a wider circle to land procedure, which I'm sure would have definitely ended up in a collision on final for runway 33. There's an extreme lack of communication between the DC tower and hour flight and the associated helicopter, who did not pop up on TCAS, which he was assuming was due to a lack of an operating transponder on behalf of the helicopter. Again, this is back in 2015. Now here's another report from 2015 that kind of sums it up with a captain who's had it with the whole situation there. The DC tower is unique in the U.S. They are consistent in the way that they're always climbing into my cockpit trying to fly my aircraft. This is when controllers overly control some of these captains. Landing there yesterday, I was told to expect minimum time on the runway. Immediately after I landed, the controller was telling the aircraft taking the runway to power up. They tell the aircraft to taxi faster, to clear exits for landing aircraft. I understand DC is a busy airport. I was based there for many years. The military low-level helicopter traffic that routinely is in the DC traffic area complicates matters. But this is probably the most dangerous airport in the United States. And there's a total of 48 of these reports. So how come this information did not get acted upon? Where does this information go from here? So from here, the NASA Aviation Safety Reporting System, all this data now goes over to yet another acronym, the FAA's ASIAS system, or the Aviation Safety Information Analysis and Sharing System. And here is the final stop where all this information is supposed to be acted upon, ASIAS, and here's their logo right here. So from all this data, they're supposed to make the improvements to air safety based on the trends they're seeing. Now, ASIAS is sponsored and I believe ran by the MITRE Corporation. The MITRE Corporation, or company or agency, is one of the most important businesses that we've never heard of before. Been around for 65 years. It's a nonprofit organization that helps provide cost-effective solutions to some of the world's biggest challenges, including defense, civil systems, homeland security, health and human services, cybersecurity, and also aviation and transportation. In fact, here it says 15 years ago, it was MITRE that helped launch ASIAS, or ASIAS. So the MITRE Corporation helps ASIAS collate all this data together, and twice a year, ASIAS meets in smoke-filled rooms to discuss this de-identified data in a program called the InfoShare meeting. Twice a year they meet, and here's the opening remarks from probably the last InfoShare meeting back on March of 2023, when Billy Nolan was the acting FAA administrator. And it is here at these InfoShare meetings, or at the result of these InfoShare meetings, that the ASIAS Executive Board needs to make the important safety decisions that are a result of all of this data information sharing. So this is where the buck stops, at the ASIAS Executive Board level. And who is the mysterious ASIAS Executive Board membership consist of? Well, apparently, it's all of us, including the FAA, NASA, Air Mobility Command, nearly all the major airlines, including Part 135 carriers, union representation. To quote Walt Kelly, "We have met the enemy, and he is us." So hopefully the NTSB and perhaps some others will be able to drill down and find out why or how this massive safety management system failure occurred. Thank you so much for your support of this channel, especially the folks over on Patreon that make this content possible. See you here.